Welcome to episode 82 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on June 16th, 2022. I have another interview for you today, this time with Hulda Brynjólfsdóttir of the Uppspuni Mini Mill in Iceland. It was such a nice chat at the time, and I edited it yesterday and enjoyed it again, so I hope you enjoy this time together too. Before we get started, I want to thank Heather for coming on board as a patron of the podcast, and also a special thanks to a few of you who increased your monthly pledge. That was very appreciated. I love my patrons because they keep the project going with their financial support and encouragement. Thank you to all of you. This week, there is about 5 minutes of bonus content from the interview available on the feed for the patrons. So if you didn't get the notice for that, be sure to hop over and have a listen. If you'd like to help support the podcast, please visit patreon.com/IThoughtIKnewHow. I also want to thank Knit New Haven for sponsoring the podcast. I picked up my bag and passport for the I-91 shop hop just the other day, and so I will be working out how to do all my visits later this summer while that's going on. The I-91 shop hop will happen August 8th through 20th this year, so they are sticking with the longer time frame, which I really appreciate. The same 9 shops are participating as last year, so if you're new to the podcast and would like an introduction to the shops and their owners, you can find the series of 3 episodes of interviews I did last summer on the podcast feed. This year, I think I may spread my trip over a few more days than I usually do. I usually do the hop over 3 days, but I think since they are keeping it a full 13 days, I'll take advantage of that. Of course, I will either begin or end with a trip to Knit New Haven because it's the southernmost shop on the hop and I'm more towards the middle. New Haven has opened up again and I've not been into any of the museums in a few years. So I think I'll hit Knit New Haven, have my Frank Pepe's pizza, pop into a few museums, and then get a few of the other shops down that way on my way home. I have some bad news and some good news about Rhinebeck this year. If you watch that knitting show over on YouTube, you already know this, but I will not be able to attend Rhinebeck this year. My dad is getting older and over half of his 16 siblings have already passed. I like to throw that out now and then that my dad is one of 17 kids because that's just crazy. Anyway, the last time I remember that family tree, that part of the family tree having a reunion was ages and ages ago, and my father's wife decided it was time to do something about that. So we will be gathering in October on the same weekend as Rhinebeck, and that's not really something I can get out of. So where does that leave us with the Rhinebeck shawl project? We are still doing our Rhinebeck shawls. Pick a shawl, knit it, wear it for the first time either at Rhinebeck or on October 15th, wherever you are. And if you are going to be at Rhinebeck and you have knit a shawl using a Morehouse Farm pattern or with Morehouse Farm wool, rather than looking for me, you're going to look for Amy Snell, who's also known as the Devious Knitter, and she will have your prize for you for participating. Amy is also doing a summer Shawlalong featuring her shawl pattern, so if you join that, and knit one of Amy's shawls with a Morehouse Farm yarn, then you are good to go. I actually picked up the Morehouse Shawl Kit designed by Vanessa Knits while I was at the Connecticut Sheep and Wool Show last month. So I've decided I'm going to go ahead and knit that, and that will be my Rhinebeck shawl, even though I'm not going to Rhinebeck. It is a bulky, and it has a cable down the center of the back and along the edge, and I've been wanting to knit it for ages, and so I figured now's the time. Okay, my friends, I feel like the business is all taken care of now, so let's move on to our interview. Hulda of Uppspuni Mini Mill very graciously agreed to meet with me while I was in Iceland in April. This might sound familiar to some of you who took part in the very first online International Fiber Festival, where Uppspuni was one of the vendors from Iceland. Hulda has an incredible mill that processes batches of fleece as small as 1 fleece to over 100 fleeces. The yarn she is able to create is very probably unlike any Icelandic wool you have used before. We'll get into why that is in the interview. I have knit a set of wrist warmers already, and I have cast on a lopapeysa, or a traditional yoked Icelandic sweater, that I am just loving. And I will do a bit of a yarn review for you on the other side of the interview. But for now, please enjoy my chat with Hulda Brynjólfsdóttir of Uppspuni Mini Mill. Hulda, you are trained as an agronomist.
Yeah.
Correct. Can you tell my listeners, first of all, what an agronomist does?
Well, they are farmers.
They're farmers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's learning to be a farmer.
Okay.
I am born and raised on a farm. Mm-hmm. And at heart, I'm a farmer. And the lover of animals. And the purpose of animals and the circle of life is a high belief in my area. Or my mind. I just think that we have to work together. And I always think I am here for my sheep and the sheep are here for me. Mm-hmm. And it's just this round or circle that is so important to me. When I was younger, I just thought about horses. And I didn't have the time to talk to anyone if he was not interested in talking about horses. And I just lived and thought like a horse. Uh-huh. And I worked as a horse trainer for 15 years. But I damaged my knee, so I had to stop training. And then instead of training horses, I started to train children. No, that's it. I'm a teacher. Mm-hmm. I got a teacher. After the agronomy education, I went into teaching.
Did you work professionally as a teacher?
Yeah, for 15 years as well.
Oh, wonderful. What ages did you teach?
I started teaching the young ones from 6 to 10.
Okay.
But the last years I was teaching kids with special needs. Okay. And Icelandic language on the higher classes like teenagers.
Interesting. I was also a teacher at elementary school. Yeah.
And that's it's very nice I really loved my job. Mm-hmm. And I really like working with kids and seeing their little victories. Yeah. When they're studying, it's just amazing.
So when you say you taught 6 to 10-year-olds, were you teaching all those ages at once or different years?
Yeah, different years. Okay. Usually I would start with a 6-year-old class and follow them up to the 4.
Oh, okay. Is that common here in Iceland?
Sometimes, yes. Mm-hmm. And in the smaller schools, it's also when I moved here, I was teaching at a school where they taught together 2 years, 6 and 7 years old, 8 and 9 and so. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And then after I met my second husband here, and we started farming here in 2010.
Okay.
With sheep. We took over the family farm from his parents, and they had 50 sheep and 10 cows with breeding for meat. And we decided to continue with this kind of farming, so we increased the number of sheep to 300 and then decreased them again, and now they're 150, and the cows are 30. So it's a small farm, but it's all working together in what we're doing. And then we also, when I started with the sheep, I have always been interested in old ways of doing things and not losing the knowledge of surviving. Mm-hmm. So spinning was something that I went into very soon.
Were you hand spinning or with a wheel? Hand spinning?
Hand spinning or no spinning.
Right, yeah. Drop spindle, I should have said.
Yeah, no, I don't do much of that. I've tried it, of course, and can do it, but I'm not very good at it. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm quite good at the spinning wheel.
Yeah. So when you married and moved here, that's when you first started working with sheep? Or had you had them earlier in life also?
Yeah. I have always had sheep around me, except for a few years. And that was when I got divorced and moved here. Mm-hmm. And then I had to leave all the sheep behind. And it surprised me to feel that I missed the sheep more than the horses. Mm-hmm. At that age. But then my knees had gone. So I went everywhere I got lots of friends who had sheep and was visiting them constantly. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. So you had your small flock here. Well, it was quite large for a while. And you were spinning some of the wool on your own.
Yeah.
So when did you, how did you decide to go from spinning on your wheel to actually opening a mill?
Well, it's, I don't know how personal I'm supposed to be here.
It's up to you.
Well, I think I didn't believe that I could do something big somehow. So I was looking at a museum in the north, and there it was like this. It's a museum about the very big mill with. They just did everything, like spinning and making yarn, knitting and making garments, making fleeces, making shoes, making carpets and rugs and throws, blankets. And they could cope. They had everything. They could make everything to wear and use around for themselves and at the house also. And and it had been like gone concurse, like it was not working anymore. So it was a museum about this in the I think it was maybe in the 70s that it went concurse. Don't you say that, concurse, when it's like...
I think it's a British saying maybe, but yeah I understand, like it just stopped working.
Yeah, stopped working. The money flow was not...
Right, didn't work out anymore.
Okay. So I was just going there around and thinking, there must have been someone, just one, who started this. Maybe I can be someone that can start something. And then I had been hand spinning for a few years, and I was sensing the interest in the Icelandic wool. I was trying to sell it online, and I could sell it, and people was just buying. So I was just thinking, maybe I should go bigger or do something more, because I really wanted to make the wool more worthwhile, or more price for it for farmers, not just me. So I was just got this like little seeds or butterflies in my head thinking about this. And a few months later, a friend of mine asked me if I would consider the idea of putting up a mini mill. And I actually didn't know what it was. I knew it had something to do with wool, so I said, well, I have been thinking a little bit. So I went home and said to my husband, this person asked me if we should put up a mini mill. And he said, what's that? I'm not quite sure. So he went online and Googled mini mill, and we came up, the first search led to Belfast mini mills in Canada. And we just fell in love with the machinery, he and the machines, I with what it could do. And it took us just a month. This was in the 15th of November, something like that this mentioned, or the person that mentioned this to me. And we had ordered the machines before Christmas. Oh, wow. So it was very fast. Yeah. And I don't regret it. It's just been... Well, the name of the firm, Uppspuni, in Icelandic, it means to tell a lie. It means to spin something up. Okay. So it's like to spin a tale. Both ways, yeah. And we often said when someone is telling something and you don't believe him, you say, this is just Uppspuni. So, but it has been like a lie, the way of how things have been going. And it's just been amazing. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable how it's been going. And it's so amazing to be a part of something, an adventure like this, which everything is just like fits or works or happens. Well, that's wonderful. Like from the very beginning, you're thinking about it. Your friend mentions it. There's already a company out there creating this, And I think it's like when I think back and it's happening a lot of time, all the things I've done before is like preparing me for doing this. And now I'm on the spot that I should be. So I'm doing something that I think is worthwhile. I'm making great yarn from the wool. And it's and people tell me I can say it. It's not just my opinion. No, you absolutely can. It's amazing wool. So, and I think people is also thinking more about the value of the wool since we started. There are more mills coming to Iceland. One is already working in the north, and I think there are 2 on the way. Excellent. I don't think the country can cope with more than 4, but we'll see how it will go. We are very busy. So, and I think also for many years, wool has been looked at as a side product or waste or not worthwhile. In Iceland, because of the cold, we have been using wool always. And I think the sheep kept us alive here, both feeding us and keeping us warm with their clothes, or their wool. And like the big mill Istex, it has been making yarn always. So we need our wool sweaters,
Right.
lopapeysa, to wear, and the wool clothes to keep us warm. And Istex has been doing a great job with keeping the heritage alive, and we have this we still have this yarn to make it happen. So people know how to use it. We have not lost the knowledge.
Which is wonderful. It's been impressive to see how much wool is still being worn here.
Yeah.
Because I know in the US and in the UK, a lot of it is being replaced by quote unquote technical fabrics, which is plastic fabrics, which they don't do as good a job.
No.
But they're cheap.
Yeah.
So people go for the cheap and expensive.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of re-education going on, trying to get people to understand the value of the wool. So it's very nice to see so many people here still wearing the wool sweaters and hats and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was happening to the wool? So you mentioned Istex, who a lot of people know as the producers of the Lopi brand. Were they just taking all the wool in the country, or were some farmers not bothering to send it to them, or what was happening with the wool?
They are obligated to take all the wool the farmers want to send them.
Oh, interesting.
And they have to pay them for the wool if it's worth something. Of course, sometimes the wool is ruined, and then they don't pay anything for it, of course.
Okay.
And then it's just a waste. But usually farmers just try to make it as good as they know how to make it good.
Right.
But the knowledge of taking care of the wool is a little bit, and people don't bother because we don't get that much money for the wool, they think. So it's not worth the work of, sorting it and scouring and taking away the. But usually we have very clean wool because of the open pastures. And we don't have the bugs and things going into the wool here, which is also quite positive.
Very helpful.
Yeah, very helpful. But Istex was a very big, it was not Istex always, it has been had other names before. And they made also, there was a big industry in knitting at home and selling sweaters in the 1940s, 50s and 60s. But then imitation came from other countries and making it at a lower price. And also people were moving away from the farms to the cities here in Iceland. And then they didn't have time to work on hand knitting. So the knitting business minimized or went smaller. And then they started to make less yarn, but still they were keeping on making some yarn. And always there was someone knitting. And now then in 2008 there was a huge inspiration or a mind change in people, and everyone started knitting. So
do you think that was tied to the economic problems? Yeah. People turned back to traditional.
And then they started to look back to what we have, what can we do from what we have to be sustainable, or look at the origin or where it comes from. And also people is now thinking more about the environment. So everything that is from plastic is no thank you. And when they know that acrylic and polyester and nylon is made from plastic, they are starting to think, what can I use instead? And when you have worn your wool sweater, you can just take it outside and it will ferment.
Freshen?
No, it will just turn into...
Oh, decompose.
Yeah, exactly, decomposed.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love wool.
Yeah, it's
it's a
so
miracle fiber. Yeah. The sheep that you have here obviously are Icelandic sheep, which are a fairly distinctive breed. Can you tell us about the Icelandic sheep and what makes them special?
The Icelandic sheep came with the settlers in 874 and with Vikings, and I believe they took only the best animals with them. It's related to the Shetland sheep and Gotland sheep and the Spelsau and the old sheep races in the Norway and Sweden and Denmark. It has two kinds of hair, shorter, finer hair, which we call þel. It's closest to the skin and keeps the sheep warm. It's insulating. And then long coarser hair, which is called tog. And that is like kind of waterproof, so it keeps the sheep dry. And the Icelandic wool has the same ability. It keeps you dry and warm when you're wearing it. And even though you go out into the rain, it absorbs a certain amount of water and then it starts to throw it off. So it's just keeping you dry. And you're never feeling uncomfortable to go into a woolen sweater as you are when you are wearing something from fake fibers, if I can say that word.
I'm not offended.
No, I mean, I just like the word. It's artificially made, I suppose, or something.
Man-made.
Man-made, yeah. From things that are not sustainable or cannot be composted. We tried to import sheep to improve the wool once and also the milk, because in the old days we used the milk also. We don't know how to do that anymore here in Iceland. So now, well, there is a woman in the east who is starting to milk their sheep. And I find that very interesting. And sheep cheese is very good, as probably many people know. But I think we have to teach the Icelanders to reuse it, because we have just been using from the cows.
Yeah, it's fallen out of use.
Yeah, because we lost the knowledge of using. It has also the sheep. It has the short tail, so it's a North Atlantic short tail breed. And it's very healthy. It doesn't have, here in Iceland, it doesn't have this immunity to the sicknesses in Europe. And we have very strict rules about sickness protection. Yeah, if sheep goes over the river here, it cannot come back. It have to go to
just
the butchery.
Over the river?
Yeah.
Wow.
The land is divided up into areas. And it's bordered with rivers and mountains and sometimes fences too. And like on the other side of the river here, which is just like 2 kilometers away, there are more diseases than are here.
Oh, interesting.
And different. So if we get sheep from there, we have to take it straight to the butchery. And it's the same if our sheep go there, it cannot come home. We just have to. So all the gates must be closed. All the roads have this like fences, the gates with the pipes.
Right.
So the sheep don't go over.
That is amazing. Even that the controls are so tight within the country itself. So the river acts as a barrier.
Yeah.
Then, there's no fields that are right up against each other.
No.
And you said in other areas there's mountain ranges and things like that.
And when they go to the mountains in the summer, we have them also in different areas.
Okay.
So my sheep would not mix with the sheep from the other community.
Right.
But they, of course, mix with the farms around here. And it's even so that across the river where they have a little bit worse diseases, they cannot go from one barn to the next.
Wow. So you do send your sheep to the hillsides for the summer.
Yeah.
And they're just out on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you go to get them, is it ear tags that help you identify them?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is also, we have this ear marks. We clip in their ears a little mark. So we know if they lose the ear tag has the number of the farm.
Right.
So we see this number, then we take it to our paddock in the sheep gathering in the fall. But if they lose the ear tag, we can see from this clip.
From the mark.
Yeah, and then we drive them home.
So how long are they up on the hillside?
They go in the beginning of July and we pick them up in September.
Okay. So and it's just because the feed is there naturally for them.
Yeah. The sheep that are there both have, better taste of meat, but the wool is also better.
Interesting.
In my opinion.
Are there any predators you have to be concerned about?
Not specifically. We have the fox, the Arctic fox, but he is only attacking if they are sick.
Okay. They're very small animals. Yeah.
And it's also like sometimes the raven, the bird, but he's more like around the farms.
Okay.
But usually it's also when something happens, if they get stuck or something, he's there.
Then, yeah.
But we don't have other predators.
You talked about how the Icelandic sheep has 2 coats. The
longer hair.
The longer the outer hair and then the finer undercoat.
Yeah.
You have your wonderful mill here. And one of the machines that you have actually helps separate the coats. Can you describe how that happens?
Yeah, it's a fiber separator. And I must say that it's invented by the people in Belfast Mini Mills. So it's a unique machine. They're a big business trying to imitate it in larger scale so they can use it in the bigger mills. So it's very interesting. And it works on the weight. So everything that is heavy falls down. So the sand and the grass also falls down from the wool. And the finer or lighter hairs are just going on with the combs through the process, and we take that and work from that. But we are also working with the waste, so we make like rug yarn from what is falling down if it's clean enough. If it's not clean enough, we put it in the fields as a fertilizer or around trees or something to like keep the moisture in and also warmth through to the plants. And also if we want to like minimize grass growing or weeds, it can also help with that. And when I'm working my yarn, I want to have some of the longer hair in to give strength. So I can decide how much I want to take out.
Okay.
Either by speeding up or going more times with it through. So sometimes I even skip it for my sock yarn. Then I leave the tog in because the tog is giving big strength to the yarn and also a little waterproof.
Nice. We are going to go in detail about all the different yarns that you have, but I did want to have you talk about that fiber separator down there because it does make an impact on the final impact of the final outcome of the yarn.
Yeah.
And then you're also talking about how you clean the yarn and how that's different. Do you want to tell us about your washing process? The wool. Yeah, sorry.
The Icelandic wool is, compared to other countries, very clean. And I don't mean Icelandic wool in general. I mean wool in Iceland. We only have the Icelandic sheep, of course. But we have open fields. We don't have so much trees. So there is not much of a vegetable material going into the wool. And they're in the mountains where it's windy and it's just fluffy and looking gorgeous in the fall. And it's like I can't describe it.
I will say, like, they look so fluffy.
Yeah. And it's like they have been to the hairdresser.
Yeah, like they're just spruced up.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see them just run around with all of this gorgeous wool in the fall. And we try to keep it that way. And like in our open fields in the fall when they're grazing at home, they don't get anything in the wool and no bugs or vegetable. It's only when you feed them with hay or silage food like we do, then they can grab it and pull it over their shoulders or something.
I see.
And then it's, I cannot work with that kind of wool. So we try to get it as clean as we can, and we don't feed them any hay until we need to. And when we need to do that, we take them inside, because then it's too hot for them to wear the wool inside, but it's too cold to wear outside without it. So we take them inside and we shear them exactly the same day. We don't leave them inside overnight and shear them the day after, unless the weather is just horrible. And that way we get like very clean, gorgeous wool, fluffy and... And then we wash it with mild lemon soap, which is nature friendly. And it's a very small machine, and it washes at 60 degrees. And it leaves a lot of lanolin in the wool when it's done. So my hands are always soft.
Yeah.
I'm just always with conditioner on my hands. Natural wool fiber conditioner. And it's just the warmth is taking out, it's fairly hot water, 60 degrees Celsius. Better say that, it's not Fahrenheit, it's Celsius.
No, much hotter.
Yeah, so it's, and it doesn't felt because the machine is very gentle, and it comes out very nice out of there.
Still fluffy.
Yeah, still fluffy.
We were looking at it downstairs.
Yeah.
So, but the result is a very different Icelandic wool than what most Americans are used to encountering when it comes to Icelandic wools, because we get the Lopi yarn, which has a reputation of being, good for outer garments and rugs and things like that. That's how we use it there. It's not something we would use against our skin.
No.
It feels very coarse.
Yeah.
The colors are great. but it's just...
Some people cannot wear it at all.
Yeah.
And most of people are just wearing something underneath.
Right. And it is... Your wool is not like that.
No.
It was very surprising to me when I first had it. And I've knit a pair of wrist warmers with it that are perfectly comfortable to wear.
Yeah. And it softens with use.
Yeah.
So it's... and I was in the beginning, when I got the first skein in my hand, I was just, how did that happen? What magic is here? Is it the elves or what happened? So... And I thought it was the fiber separator. Mm-hmm. I was just determined that it was that. But then, after a while, we made this sock yarn, where we don't use the fiber separator.
Right.
And it's the same soft yarn.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, okay, this is not the reason. What is it then? And I started to compare what they are doing in the big mill and what we are doing. And first of all, we are not using any chemicals. Mm-hmm. We are very small. The big machinery are washing very thoroughly. With very hot, well, we are using hot water. They're not using so hot water, they're just using like force on it. So they wash out everything that's in there, every lanolin and everything. It's just hair are left, and sometimes some grass and bale wire. But that's another story.
Bale wire's very itchy.
Yeah, it is. Well, we use only this lemon soap, and we leave a lot of lanolin in the wool, and we don't dye the wool. Mm-hmm. It's not colored. It's just the natural color of the sheep. The big mill dyes all the colors, also the natural ones. And they do that to provide the same kind of color next year. Mm-hmm. So it's just what they do. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying they have to do it that way. Yeah, their system. So, but of course it affects that it's not as soft when you have put all the chemicals in, both in the washing with the chemical detergent and then with the dyeing with the chemical colors. There is a lot of chemical there. And sometimes people are talking about they have like powder in their lap when they have finished knitting. Oh, wow. Yeah. Because there is something left. And also people have told me that they cannot knit anymore with the wool, because they have allergies. Mm. They're just crying, they get cracky hands and sore, and they're just bleeding, so they have stopped knitting. I had even one who just didn't want to stop. She was using gloves. Mm-hmm. And I have had 3 women with this problem knitting my wool, and they don't feel anything. So it's not the wool. It's the chemicals. They're chemicals that's used. So that is the main reason for my softer yarn. It still has the lanolin, and it has no chemicals. Mm-hmm. And even though when I am dyeing and I'm using powder dyes, which must be considered chemical, we fasten the colors with vinegar. I use so very little that you can still feel the softness in yarn that has been colored. And you get really vibrant colors. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Like even with them. Yeah. I think it's the main reason for the softness. Yeah. No chemicals. Yeah. It's shocking. Yeah. And it's so funny that they also mix merino to the Icelandic wool. Mm-hmm. And still it's not softer. And I feel like after touching this yarn and then touching something that is from other wool, I feel like that is fake. It's like something, there is something wrong. Right. No, it doesn't feel right. Yeah. And I actually met one woman once. I had made yarn from her wool, and I saw her in some gathering, and she was just far away, and I was just, wow, she's wearing a nice sweater. And I just went to her, and I was looking at her sweater and smiling, and when I came to her, she just, without saying hello, she said, this is not your wool. But it looks the same, I said, and I was just, she was soft and everything. No, it's very old. Oh. This is how they used to do it. Mm-hmm. So before, when they used some other kind of chemicals or something, they didn't have this problem. Right. So there's something that needs, maybe they should look into it to get something more. So we have some of your wool here in front of us, and maybe people can pull up your website if they want to look at it as we're talking about it. You have these different types of wool, and they all have unique names too. Maybe if you could share why you named it the way you did, and something about the yarn. my name Hulda. It means hidden. So I'm named after the hidden woman. I am a twin, and no one knew I was coming, so I got this name, Hidden. I was hidden. And here in Iceland, some of us believe in the hidden people and the elves and the trolls. And of course I do that. I'm named after them. So it's just, you have to. And I also like the stories about them. So when I was starting this business with my yarn, and we had to make, of course, some yarn that could be fitting for some patterns. We didn't have time to make the patterns as well. We started with yarn that would be like the same thickness as léttlopi. It's people know. And everyone said, you have to name it Hulduband. And I said, well, that's very egocentric. I'm not going to do that unless I can say this or tell people this story. So, and then I decided to go into this theme that we just work with the hidden people and the elves. So we have Hulduband, the hidden woman yarn. We have Dvergaband, which is the dwarf. We have Tröllaband, which is the troll. And band means yarn or a string or something. And then we have the fairy, Dís. And that's not the fairy band, it's just Dís. And that is the finest. It's fingering weight. Shall I tell you about the weight also?
Yes.
Hulduband is Aran weight. 100 meters give you 50 gram. Dvergaband is bulky, I think it's called. And Dís, the fairy, is fingering weight. And Tröllaband, the trolls, it's like dreadlocks.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any weight.
It's just big.
Yeah.
Super bulky.
Yeah, super bulky. It's a core span. There's a thread inside. And the machines there are two of them helping each other. So one of them is pulling the thread through and the other one is wrapping the wool around it. And that is my waist yarn actually. It's made from the waist, but it's still soft. And I think that's mostly because it's so fluffy. Then we have the sock yarn. And
yeah, tell me details about your sock yarn, because I think listeners are going to be very interested in that.
The sock yarn is, then we skip the fiber separator because the long hair in the wool gives strength. And I choose specially wool for that kind of yarn. So I'm looking at the longer hair, and it has to be strong too, because it's not enough that it's long. Then I take it, I don't put it through the fiber separator. So I leave all the tog in the yarn. And it has to be clean, of course, too, because no sand, no grass.
Right.
Because the fiber separator is cleaning that one out too. I got it 3-ply. It's rather thick. It's similar as Dvergaband, the dwarf, 3-ply. And therefore we call it Dvergasokkar, which means dwarf socks, because it fits the same weight as the Dvergaband. Yeah, dwarf. So it's quite thick socks you get. You almost need half pair size bigger shoes. But it's the kind of wool socks we are used to here in Iceland.
Right.
We like to have them warm and thick. And we just wear them a lot and they last long. And it's just wool. No nylon, no plastic, nothing. Just wool.
And you were saying that because you keep that outer hair in the blend, then it wears much longer than...
Yeah, and also the way we spin it.
Wool. Yeah.
It's 3-ply, which gives it more strength, and it's spun in a certain way. And they actually made an experiment in the States once. Just weeks after we made this yarn, we read this experiment. And the best result of the sock yarn were testing was made with merino and mohair, which is actually tog and thill, like in the Icelandic wool.
Yeah.
And it was 3-ply, and in this weight. So we
there you go.
Yeah. So we hit the best result without knowing about it.
You can do it in from one animal too.
Yeah,
instead of
exactly.
Having to combine the two.
But then I wanted to make, because it's so thick, and you sometimes want to wear something thinner. I tried to make also thinner sock yarn the same way, 3-ply with all the tog in, and in the weight as Hulduband, the hidden woman yarn. So that is hidden woman socks. But they are not as strong.
Because they're finer.
Because they're finer. They are strong, but I don't recommend them in like heavy business, walking or working a lot outside.
But like a daily
use inside.
Stock.
I sleep in them in the winter. It's just, they're amazing.
And again, it has the outer coat, but it's still not coarse.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I'm sorry to keep repeating myself with this, but that's how surprising it is for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what we're always told is because of that outer coat, that makes it so coarse.
Yeah. And I think it's more of the way you spin it. And also, we, of course, are not working with the most coarse fiber.
Right.
When I feel something very coarse in the wool that I get, I don't use it in that kind of yarn. I put it in the tröllaband, the troll band, or just out in the fields.
Yeah.
Because it's too coarse.
Yeah.
And that is my advantage to like the bigger mills. I can touch each fleece. They get big bags and they put it in the pot. Yeah. But I get one fleece separately, and I can just feel, okay, this is going into this business and this is going into that business, and this one I don't want to use.
Right.
So that is also an advantage to me.
Yeah.
And we have our hands in it all the time because it's nearly a handcraft. The machines are just to help us, and no plastic.
You also process wool for other people. It's not just from your flock.
Yeah.
How many fleeces do you need to get from someone in order to process the yarn for them?
One.
Just one?
Yeah.
You can do as small as one?
Yeah.
How many typically do you get from your customers?
It's very different. Usually, let's say that most of the people bring 5 fleeces.
Okay.
But I get up to 100. And that's a lot for me because we are very small. We make... average is 8 to 12 kilos a day. So it's small, and people have to wait for their yarn to come back.
So 5 fleeces, are there a lot of people who are sort of keeping sheep as pets in Iceland?
Well, we call them hobby farmers.
Hobby farm,
yeah,
okay.
We usually don't refer to them as pets because a pet, in our opinion, is in the living room. Hobby farmers who are just using them for the home. But they look at them as farmers. Right. And it's smaller flocks.
So is it similar to like a crofter in Shetland where maybe they have another job that they do, but they like having the animals and things around them?
And usually they have then 10 to 20 sheep.
Okay.
But most of my customers are with big flocks, and then they have their favorite sheep that they bring from them, or their grandchildren has, or their daughters or sons have sheep and they want to knit a sweater for them. And then there are also farmers who are selling at home yarn.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I know tourism is huge in Iceland. So are there farmers who, have people come by the farm and they sell to them?
Well, a lot of farmers are in guest houses.
Okay.
Giving tourists somewhere to sleep. And maybe the sheep are just outside the window, and then they are thinking, okay, here's the yarn from that sheep. You can, if you want to buy. Yeah. And I find that a very nice idea.
That works on me all the time.
And since we are so small, we can label the yarn by the sheep.
By the sheep.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the colors of the yarn. You mentioned you do some dyeing here, but for the most part, it's natural.
The natural colors are all natural.
Yeah.
I don't dye like brown and gray and black and white. And we are very lucky with the Icelandic Sheep. We still have all the colors in. And I have been breeding for colors now for a few years. And I think I have most of the common Icelandic colors.
What are some of those common colors?
Well, we have grey in various shades and black in 3 shades. Brown is black, grey is black, and pure black. And then we have white and creamy white and brown in several colors also. And then we have badger face, mouflon, all kinds of flecks and spots. And we can have, like I have a sheep that is both mouflon and badger face. And you just have to look on the internet what that means. Because I can't show you the picture.
On the eyes. And, Well, as you said, they're common relations with like the Shetland sheep. I think a lot of my listeners are familiar with Shetland sheep. And the different markings that they can have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when people bring you the fleeces, do they tend to separate out the colors for the mixed ones, or will they ask for it to be processed?
In whole, as the fleece comes. That's the most common thing.
Yeah.
But when we process like black and white sheep, it gets gray color.
Yeah.
Because it mixes so much on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to have, like, if they come with a black and white sheep and say, we want to have it a little mixed, I'm not so sure I can do that.
Uh-huh.
It's more difficult. And it's like you have to do that in hand spinning.
Right.
But of course, like, when you knit from it, it gets variations in the sweater, especially in the sweater. And you can see how it's somewhere darker and lighter on the way. So it can show.
Mm-hmm. And you were saying, just a reminder that even from animal to animal, the colors can vary from year to year. So if you do place a sweater order or an order from Uppspuni, you have to make sure that you order enough for the project. Yeah.
And people like that. They make a hat out of the rest. Or wrist warmers.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's better to have a little bit too much than a little bit too little.
Yeah.
It's very bad.
So you were involved with South Iceland Wool Week.
Yeah.
That happened last year. Is it last year that it was able to go through?
Yeah, in October 21.
Are there any plans that that's going to happen again?
Yeah, we are going to be there this October also.
Oh, excellent. Do you want to tell people like what they can expect from South Iceland Wool Week?
It will be in the week 3rd to 9th of September. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Of October or September?
October, sorry. Yeah, October, let's be.
I don't want people to come the wrong time.
No. 3rd to 9th of October is the South Iceland Wool Week. Uh-huh. And I'm not sure if all the days will be occupied like last time, but it will be like the most will be going on from Wednesday to Sunday.
Okay.
But there is a color show in the beginning where farmers are coming together and bringing their sheep with different colors and competing in the most beautiful color. And then there will be teaching like courses in knitting and spinning and dyeing and all kinds of that you can do with wool. There will be a market. There might be an open house here showing shearing in Uppspuni. And last year I had the shearing and people could come and collect, like choose the fleece from, like point at the sheep and say, I want the fleece from this one, and watch it being shorn and just take the fleece with them. And I also offered that I could spin it for them and ship it to them because it takes a while to spin it, of course. You cannot take it the same day.
Right.
So, and knitting together, open studios. I'm a part of the group Spinning Sisters, and they have, more than I have, opened some studios or working shop or galleries. So they will be open and welcoming visitors, and that's just a little circle around here, as you can drive through and visit those people and see what they're doing. So it's all kinds of interesting stuff.
Do you have many people come from abroad to be part of?
Yeah. We had quite a few. Expecting more than came because at the time coronavirus went up, and like from the United States they had to cancel all of them.
Yeah. I was one of those. I was planning to come.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as the classes are concerned, are they taught in Icelandic or are they taught in English, or is it a mix of the two?
You can have both or either.
Okay.
But most of them depended on if there were only Icelanders then it was in Icelandic. So.
Okay.
But most of the Icelandic people are talking quite good English. So
very good English.
So they can manage.
Yeah, usually. I've been very impressed. It makes it very easy to travel here as an American. We don't learn second languages to fluency in our schools. It's very sad. So I can do okay in France, but that's it. Yeah. But it's people just speak to us in English. It's very kind of them and very helpful for us.
It's just we are so small and not many people are talking Icelandic. We are just 360,000.
Yeah, well, it's true. And I tried, the Duolingo program. There's no Icelandic on there. And I was trying to, because I do like to learn some basics before I go, and I could not find any
And please don't use Google Translate.
Okay.
It's just, We laugh and laugh if someone does, because it's so stupid that Google Translate suggests.
We've been trying to use it to translate back to English. So we'll see signs for something or see, an advertisement, and we type it in and it doesn't come up with anything.
No.
So we're like, well, this is not helpful at all.
No. But we are taught English and Danish in school, and then we can choose the third language.
Okay.
And, I speak Icelandic, English, Swedish, German, and Danish, and a tiny bit of French. So,
yeah, that's amazing. And I have a little bit of French and even less Tagalog, and I lived there for 9 years. So it's awful. Yeah. So get your kids into the multilingual schools, everybody.
Yeah. But it's also like this saying, which is quite fitting here in a spinning mill for wool. The need teaches the naked woman to spin. There
you go.
Yeah.
So you do have a shop here in the mill, and it's a beautiful shop. It's the second floor of the mill here, where people can come and touch everything. But you also do ship internationally for people who are interested. Yeah. Like, how do they find your shop?
Well, I'm online, uppspuni.is. But my web shop is not always very active, but it's also possible just to email me. Okay. And you can find the email on my website. I'm not going... Well, I can say it is huldauppspuni@gmail.com or hulda@uppspuni.is. Okay.
I'll put that in the links in the show notes for people.
Yeah.
So you don't have to sound that out.
I think I give quite good service in helping people to find something, taking picture and asking, do you like this or do you like that?
I think that something you've mentioned on your website is how much you love helping people find colors for their projects.
Yeah. It's my yoga
very helpful. Yeah. And then if they want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
We are both on Facebook and Instagram. And it's Uppspuni.
Okay. And I'll have the links for that in the show notes too. Hulda, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me to talk with you.
I don't know about you, but I could listen to Hulda all day. She just has one of those voices. She was such a treat to speak with. She has a great sense of humor and a true love for Icelandic wool and the preservation of the traditional crafts of Iceland. It was a real joy to speak with her. Thank you again, Hulda. I promised I'd share my thoughts on the yarn from Uppspuni. I've only used the Hulda bond so far, both for the wrist warmers and now for the sweater. It's a worsted spun Icelandic 2-ply S-plied wool. They call it an Aran weight. I think Americans would think of it as a light worsted. It works well at about 18-ish stitches to 4 inches. There is a slight prickle to the yarn. It is still an Icelandic wool, but it's not as severe to me as the Lopi yarn that most of us are familiar with. And because it's worsted spun, it also doesn't behave like the Lopi yarn we're used to when we're thinking about Icelandic wool. It's drapier. It has more luster. The stitch definition is crisper, so you need to be a little more careful with your tension because the stitches don't melt into one another as much as they do when you're using a woolen spun yarn. It feels lovely and sleek as you knit with it, likely because of the remaining lanolin that they're able to keep in the wool at Uppspuni, but I think the spin has a lot to do with that too. The sweater I'm working on is a combination of natural white and silver, as well as 4 other dyed colors that are really vibrant. I always encourage you to try out the products of the folks I interview. I have them on the show because I think that what they're doing is impressive. So of course I'm going to encourage you to give them a try. But this yarn is really surprising, especially if you have been exposed to other forms of Icelandic wool. I really think that folks should give it a try because it is unexpected. You can find Hulda and her lovely yarns at uppspuni.is and at various places on social media. I will be sure to put all of that information in the show notes for you. A few more things before I go. A quick reminder that July 15th is the day that we will be releasing the information about the Mackin' Our Way Through Shetland tours for 2023. Then patrons will get first chance to register on July 18th. July 19th, people on the wait list who are traveling with a friend and are willing to share a room will get the link to register. Everyone else on the waitlist will get the link on the 20th, and then the link will go live to the rest of the world on the 21st. To get on that waitlist, email Jolene at info@islandvista.co.uk and let her know you are interested in the trip and whether or not you plan to travel with a friend. When the time comes, you will hold your spot with a £100 deposit, and the remaining amount will be due 90 days prior to your travel. The trips will run mid-April to mid-May, and then mid-August to mid-September. The exact information for all of those will come out on July 15th. And remember, the tour isn't just for Americans. It starts when you set foot in Shetland, so come join us from wherever you are. Back in a couple of weeks with another interview for you. I hope you enjoyed spending these last few episodes with some of the members of the fiber community in Iceland. In the meantime, thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you'd like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/Ithought-I-knew-how to make a monthly pledge. You may also consider making a purchase from one of our sponsors by visiting the website Ithought-I-knew-how.com and clicking the link at the top that says Be a Booster. While you are on the site, you can also find the show notes for each episode. Thank you ever so much to all of my patrons, to Knit New Haven, and to Morehouse Farm for sponsoring the podcast. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on Twitter, where it's just Thought I Knew How. The groups on various platforms are all called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.